Good evening and welcome to California Today. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's a preview of some of today's stories. Critics continue to call out a bill that would allow a therapist to take a 12-year-old child away without parental consent. An attorney tells NTD that the bill would legalize kidnapping. We have special coverage on California Assembly Bill 665. The bill would allow school mental health counselors to send children as young as 12 years old to residential mental health facilities without parental consent. The Assembly Judiciary Committee voted 7-2 at the end of March, advancing the proposal further along the legislative process. NTD's David Lamb spoke with Brad Dacus, attorney and president at the Pacific Justice Institute, to hear his thoughts.
Brad, thank you for joining me here today to discuss AB 665, which was recently passed. Now, could you start with a brief overview of what's your thoughts on this bill?
Yeah, this is a horrific bill when it comes to parental rights and undermining the rights of parents. What it says is it's going to change the law to allow counselors, mental health counselors, possibly like a school counselor, for example, to take a child and put the child over the age of 12, has to be over the age of 12 or over, and put that child into a mental health residential facility without parental consent. Now, right now, under the law, in order for this to be done, there has to be reports of incest or an immediate threat to the child's health or safety, that they're likely going to try to commit suicide or harm themselves physically or mentally. Right now, that's what has to be shown and before a child can be taken and put into a mental health facility without parental consent. This obliterates those qualifiers and gives tremendous latitude for a mental health counselor to be able to take a child away from the parents, put them in this residential mental hospital for youth, and the parents have no say in the matter. Due process is out the window.
Could you talk about how this would impact communities and families in California?
Yeah, basically what this does is it puts a cloud of fear over moms and dads up and down the state of California, just knowing that at any time they could lose their child. And specifically, this legislation is targeting those children who might have same-sex sexual attraction issues or confusion or gender identity confusion. This is what it's really targeting, so that a counselor can simply take the child away from the family under the grounds that the parents have maybe traditional religious beliefs and convictions, and therefore are an inherent danger or concern for the child, even though they're not having to prove anything or show any evidence. Presently, under California law, in order for a child to be taken from a home, then by a social worker, there has to be a showing of a reasonable suspicion of abuse or neglect against the child by the parents. This throws that out. No longer. If you can show that that child is potentially not affirmed in terms of their sexuality or gender identity confusion, you can lose your child. That is what this brings to the table. It's basically a legalized kidnapping. When you take a child without any reasonable due process, without any actual imminent threat of harm to the child to justify it, that's kidnapping. That's why many people refer to this as the kidnapping bill of California.
Now, what can parents do in terms to, claim custody or bring their children back?
Well, first off, if any parent at any time sees this as a pending threat of risk or harm, potentially with regard to their child, they should not hesitate to contact Pacific Justice Institute. The fact is, David, we are looking right now for plaintiffs who can show that they have a risk or a harm that they may lose their child has some mental issues, some emotional issues that could in some way justify them losing their child under this legislation. So I encourage parents in that situation to contact us at PJI. I also encourage parents to download our very important parental resources called 12 Steps to Protect Your Children from CPS or social workers. It's available without charge on our website, pji.org, pji.org. We have other great resources there empowering parents as well. But parents need to understand things are not the same. And particularly in states like California, blue states predominantly, parents do not have the rights of due process that they think they do, and they can easily have their children taken. And this legislation will be an incentive, mark my words, for more and more parents to say, enough of California, I'm moving to Texas or Tennessee or Florida or somewhere else that is more respectful of the rights of parents.
Since we're also talking about different states, what are the national implications that this California legislation could have on other states?
Well, right now in California, we have already passed legislation that allows, it's similar kidnapping protection legislation that allows a kidnapper, say from California, to go to Texas, go to another state, say to a family in Dallas, and to be able, they could kidnap that child and take that child to California without the parents knowing, the legal guardian knowing. And that kidnapper, under California law, will be protected from any criminal prosecution for the kidnapping if it can be shown that the reason they kidnapped the child was to enable the child to undergo a gender transformation, to become a transgender, to quote unquote change their gender. Now, genetically, that's impossible. You cannot genetically change any cell to say something different with regard to your gender. But as far as cutting off body parts, getting injected with drugs and hormones, that's what we're talking about here to a minor child by a kidnapper. And that protects the kidnapper from being prosecuted, and the parents have no right to see the child or even the medical records of the child to know what body parts were cut off and what was injected into their son or daughter. It is horrific. It's a clear violation of the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution.
How about the child's role in all of this?
Well, first, I want to make it really clear. We're talking about a child, a minor. And the law basically says, generally speaking, minors are not to be given whatever they want. In fact, studies show that if a children with gender identity dysphoria is simply just left alone and not encouraged to have the confusion, just left alone, more than 90% of them will no longer even have that confusion by the time they graduate from high school. And so that's how fluid children are, and yet we're allowing third parties, potentially strangers, to be able to kidnap a child simply because at that moment they have those feelings, and that's all that's needed to violate the rights of parents and to permanently sterilize and tragically traumatize a child for many, many years to come.
Brad, thank you so much for your time. It's great having you on the show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure. Take care.
We'll take a short break now, but here's a look at what we have for you when we come back. 2 autonomous vehicle companies are recalling hundreds of cars. The recall follows a bus crash and issues with cars' suspension parts. An action-packed truck driving competition shook Southern California's City of Industry. Fans cheered on their favorite competitors while one young contestant tried to make a name for himself. And a Northern California Police Department has just added a new 4-legged member to the team. The small and fluffy recruit has been named the agency's wellness officer. Those stories and more coming up on California Today. Welcome back to California Today. I'm your host, Bill Thomas. 2 autonomous vehicle companies are recalling hundreds of cars following problems with suspension parts and a recent crash. A combined total of 700 vehicles could be recalled between the 2 companies.
General Motors' Cruise Autonomous Vehicle Unit and Tesla have been recalling hundreds of vehicles following a bus crash and suspension parts issues, respectively. Robotaxi unit Cruise announced it is recalling the automated driving software in 300 vehicles after a driverless vehicle crashed into a San Francisco bus on March 23rd. In a National Highway Traffic Safety Administration filing made public on Friday, Cruise said the collision happened because the vehicle software did not accurately predict the movement of a San Francisco bus. There were no injuries. In a statement on the recall on Friday, Cruise's CEO said, "Although our car did brake in response, it applied the brakes too late and rear-ended the bus at about 10 miles per hour." Cruise said the self-driving software in the 300 vehicles was updated on March 25th to address concerns the system, quote, may inaccurately predict the movement of articulated vehicles such as buses and tractor trailers. Meanwhile, Tesla is recalling just over 400 Model 3 vehicles in the U.S. because front suspension lateral link fasteners may loosen. Tesla will tighten or replace them to address the issue that could allow the lateral link to separate from the subframe. Tesla said it has 25 warranty claims and 2 field reports since January 2019, which are related or could relate to the recall, but no reports of crashes or injuries.
California's governor is aiming to turn traditionally red states into opportunities for the Democratic Party to spread their influence. Governor Newsom recently launched a new committee that focuses on promoting messages that target Republican leadership in other states.
Governor Gavin Newsom launched a new political action committee, or PAC, called the Campaign for Democracy. He already set aside $10 million in funding. Announced on March 30th, the committee says Campaign for Democracy's messaging focuses on targeting Republican leadership. It also seeks to question the party's legitimacy and capacity to serve. The committee wrote a statement under a section titled Existential Threats on their website. It reads, in part, leading figures of the Republican Party continue operating with total disregard for democratic norms and institutions. On the other hand, critics say Newsom's extensive use of emergency powers during the pandemic and his history of issuing record numbers of executive orders are a major concern for California. Assembly Republican leader James Gallagher wrote on Twitter that Newsom's executive orders, quote, destroys livelihoods and violates the rights of parents. Gallagher and U.S. Representative Kevin Kiley successfully sued the governor's office last year over mail-in ballots. The court ruled that the governor doesn't have, quote, the power or authority to amend statutory laws or create new statutory law, even during a state of emergency, and Newsom's mail-in ballot mandate was unconstitutional. Newsom's campaign efforts in Republican states aren't new. Last year, he paid for billboards in 7 states promoting California as an abortion sanctuary. That garnered speculation of a presidential run, but Newsom remains adamant that he currently has no interest.
Following damage caused by several winter storms, LA's mayor has outlined how the city will now patch potholes. City officials say they've received over 19,000 complaints about the holes on the road.
Recent historic storms have caused more than 19,000 potholes in Los Angeles. Mayor Karen Bass and Councilwoman Monica Rodriguez outlined on April 6th how the city will identify and patch up the street.
City workers are pulling out all the stops, but not just to prepare every pothole that's reported, but also to be proactive. That means driving across the city, throughout this district and all others, to assess the condition of our streets and identify and repair and damage right away.
The LA Bureau of Street Services reported receiving 19,279 requests since December to fix potholes. So far, the agency has repaired 17,459 of them. After the winter storms in January, the city received an additional 3,400 complaints. City officials encourage Angelenos to notify them about potholes or damage to city streets. This can be done by calling 311 or through the city's 311 app to make a service request.
Over the weekend, thousands of fans cheered on their favorite competitor in the world of gigantic, action-packed truck driving. NTD spoke to one of the young contestants who's trying to make a name for himself.
On April 8th, thousands of people gathered in the Industry Hills Expo Center to attend the 2023 Monster Truck Wars in the City of Industry. One of the contestants, Preston Collins, the driver of Shark Attack, made his truck fly on the course.
So this truck is right at around 10,000 pounds, and it's got around 1,600 horsepower, and each tire is about 700 pounds. There's a lot that goes on in there at one time.
He's one of the youngest in the competition of monster truck driving, which drivers of specialized off-road vehicles compete in races and freestyle stunt driving. The sport first came into public eye in the early 80s.
I mean, this has been a dream of mine since I was about 2 years old. My parents took me to my first show, and ever since then I was just hooked.
In freestyle events, each driver puts on a performance consisting of stunts such as obstacle jumps and backflips. A panel of judges assign points to each performance, and the driver with the most points is declared the winner.
I'd like to say to the young kids that if you've got a dream, that you can do it. It doesn't matter what it is. Because, I mean, I used to be a little kid, and I had a dream, and look at me now. I'm living my dream.
Monster Truck Wars' next show is in Corpus Christi, Texas on April 15th.
A Northern California Police Department has added a fluffy member to its staff. The four-legged recruit is tasked with helping employees relieve stress.
The Yuba Police Department has just announced the addition of a rabbit to its staff to help its employees and their families deal with stress. The rabbit has an official title, Wellness Officer Percy. Unlike his fellow colleagues, his job is not to go out patrolling the streets of the Northern California city of Yuba. Officer Percy stays at the station, wandering around the employees' workplaces. His duty is to act as a support animal as part of the department's wellness program. He arrived by chance at the department when Officer Carson found the bunny while patrolling the city in October 2022. He seemed to be lost in the middle of Percy Avenue, so Officer Carson decided to take him to animal control. No one claimed him, so a police services analyst decided to adopt him. Since then, the bunny has been a regular member of the police station, wandering around in the arms and affection of employees.
Now to NTD's Tyler Castillo for the all-important update on sports.
Hello, I'm Tyler Castillo. Welcome to today's California Sports Roundup.
Stephen Curry poured in 26 points in 22 minutes, and the Golden State Warriors produced a record-setting first quarter as they clinched a Western Conference playoff spot with a victory over host Portland Trail Blazers on Sunday. All 13 players who suited up scored for the Warriors, who wound up in 6th place in the West. The LA Clippers won at Phoenix to finish tied with Golden State, but LA held the tiebreaker to earn the 5th seed. The Warriors draw the 3rd-seeded Kings in the first round of the playoffs. The Sacramento Kings will make it to the playoffs for the first time in 16 years. Needing a win to assure themselves a playoff spot, the Warriors wasted no time leaving the Trailblazers in the dust. The Warriors set an NBA record for first quarter points with 55 points. Warriors 157, Trailblazers 101. Norman Powell scored 29 points off the bench. Kawhi Leonard and Russell Westbrook added 25 apiece, and visiting Los Angeles secured the number 5 seed in the Western Conference playoffs with a win over Phoenix. Leonard scored the last 8 points for the Clippers and finished with a season-high 15 rebounds plus 6 assists. Bones Highland scored 11 points and Ivica Zubac had 10 points and 8 rebounds for the Clippers, who won despite shooting 5 of 23 from a 3-point range and 16 of 24 from the foul line. Sabin Lee led Phoenix with a career-high 25 points and a season-high 9 assists. The Suns rested starters Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and DeAndre Ayton. Clippers 119, Suns 114. LeBron James scored 36 points with 8 3-pointers to lift Los Angeles to a victory over visiting Utah. The Lakers failed to earn themselves a guaranteed playoff spot. The number 7 seed Lakers will host the 8th-seeded Minnesota Timberwolves on Tuesday in the play-in round. Anthony Davis contributed 16 points, 13 rebounds, 4 blocks, and 3 steals in the win, while D'Angelo Russell scored 17 points as the Lakers won for the 9th time in 11 games. Chris Dunn scored 26 points with 10 rebounds and 8 assists to lead the Jazz, who, again, played without their starting lineup and a couple of other key players. Lakers 128, Jazz 117. The white-hot Tampa Bay Rays continued their onslaught on the unfortunate teams on their schedule and the MLB record book, crushing the visiting Oakland A's 11-0 on Easter Sunday in Florida for their 9th straight win to open the season. The Rays matched the 2003 Kansas City Royals for the hottest streak to start a season in baseball's wildcard era. Brandon Lowe hit a grand slam, and Drew Rasmussen and 2 relievers combined on a one-hitter. Raymond Laureano doubled with 2 outs in the second for the lone Oakland hit. Wander Franco, Lau, and Harold Ramirez homered in the first 5 innings as the Rays built a 7-0 lead off Oakland starter James Caprillion. The Rays' plus 57 run differential through 9 games is the largest ever in MLB since 1900. The Oakland Athletics have lost 4 straight games. They were outscored 31-5 in the 3-game series with the Rays. Rays 11, A's 0. Nelson Cruz had 3 hits, including a 3-run homer and a double, and drove in 6 runs as San Diego pummeled host Atlanta for its 3rd victory of the 4-game series. The 42-year-old Cruz hit its 2nd homer of the season, a 432-foot drive to left center in the 3rd, an RBI double in the 5th, and a 2-run single in the 6th. It was the 10th game in Cruz's career with 6 or more RBIs. The Padres scored in 5 straight innings against Braves left-handed rookie starter Dylan Dodd and reliever Lucas Luetge. Padres starter Seth Lugo gave up 1 run on 5 hits and 4 walks with 5 strikeouts over 6 innings to earn the win. Padres were leading 8-0 when the Braves scored in the 5th. Padres 10, Braves 2.
That is all we have for sports today. I'm Tyler Castillo. See you next time.
That's all we have for you tonight, and would like you to join us again on California Today every weekday right here at 8:30 p.m. Also, make sure to check out our broadcasts on our California Today webpage, and you can find that at ntd.com/California-Today. You can also find all of our top latest clips there, ready to share with friends and family. And if you could, please send us a message on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, or through our email, and that's california.today@ntd.com. I'm Bill Thomas, and on behalf of all of us here in the newsroom, have a great night.